Pane místopředsedo, rád vás jednou vidím. Tak, jdu tam. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? We are running a little behind the schedule, so we will have to be very disciplined because what we will have now is a panel on a very interesting topic with some very distinguished panelists. By the way, my name is Michal Žantovský. I'm a diplomat. I'm also a member of the organizing committee of this GlobSec forum. And our topic is engaging the disengaged, overcoming polarization. And right at the beginning, we have a slight conceptual confusion here because the people who are polarized are not necessarily disengaged. I mean, they may be engaged on the other side of the divide. And on this and other subjects, let me bring in my panelists. Without further ado, Ambassador Weiss will please sit down, and and I will invite to the podium, it is an honor and a privilege, the President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel. The Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency, Věra Jourová, our very own Věra Jourová. A former president, the President of Estonia, Toomas Ilves. The Vice President of the of Google for Europe, for Government Relations and Public Policy, Annette Kroeber-Riel. I made it. I practiced her name for about 30 minutes. And finally, Ivan Krastev, a social scientist, the founder of the Center for Liberal Strategies in Sofia. Ivan, welcome. Welcome all. Please sit down. Now, there are so many things to address. The question of leadership in overcoming polarization, the question of communication strategies, of education, the question of fake information and how to fight against it, the question of the online sphere and whether it helps or prevents the spreading of information, but also of disinformation and so on. I will give each of the panelists about 5 to 7 minutes to start with, and then we will have a dialogue and conversation because there is no engagement without dialogue and conversation. And at the end, there will be Q&As from the floor. And on the Slido, you can also ask questions. So, Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to have you here on the discussion that strikes the very heart of our democratic societies. In the recent years, we have witnessed a growing polarization within societies across the world. And these trends are influenced by the way we communicate, cooperate, and coexist. The core of this issue is disengagement, a process where citizens, overwhelmed by hostile rhetorics and biased information, withdraw from democratic participation, such as voting or participating in public discussions, leading to apathy and distrust. But it is necessary to point out that polarization is not only an internal issue, but also extends beyond the borders. As populism and disinformation campaigns divide our societies, they also affect our relationship with other nations. This is the reason why we need to engage with states they may not share our values or are reluctant to cooperate, whether due to different ideologies, economic interests, or geopolitical strategies. This external dimension poses a significant challenge. In an increasingly interconnected world, our ability to build and maintain partnerships with other countries is crucial for addressing global issues, as we witness today in the case of rallying support for Ukraine. I believe that by reaching out to others, even those who may seem distant or uncooperative, we can begin to rebuild trust and re-engage both within and beyond our borders. As we discuss these challenges today, let us focus on how we can build meaningful partnerships with other nations rather than deepening the polarization of the world. And let me now address the core three questions. First, what kind of strategies we can implement today to reverse the polarization and the disengagement? I believe that leaders should create platforms and opportunities for an open dialogue, where a diverse perspective can be raised and are respected. They can also actively identify and promote issues that unite rather than divide. Even in areas of strong disagreements, there is often a room for collaboration on shared goals. Governments should adopt comprehensive strategies targeting each step of the disinformation spreading process. Moreover, we aim to work with other nations to address common global challenges such as disinformation and populism. By promoting multilateral cooperation and shared values, leaders can foster a more united international community. Second, when reaching to people from the distrustful communities, first and foremost, we should listen to their concerns without judgment. Understanding their fears and frustrations is crucial for a meaningful engagement. We should work to build their trust by collaborating with local leaders or partners who already enjoy confidence of the people. By being transparent in communication and consistent in actions, providing clear, honest information and following through on commitments are crucial for rebuilding trust with these communities. And finally, focusing on addressing the most pressing issues that these communities face, whether economic, social, or cultural. And third, who are our key allies needed for a successful approach? First, through people who are respected within these communities, such as local leaders, activists, or representatives of non-governmental organizations. Secondly, it is essential to focus on educators and address the differences in our educational systems. And thirdly, business owners who have an influence on the well-being of the community can initiate and promote trust and engagement through sponsorship, advocacy of their direct involvement. Independent and local media that are trusted by the community can help disseminate accurate information and provide platforms for dialogue, countering misinformation, and bridging divides. So these are, in my view, concrete ways how we can prevent disengagement of population as well as among the nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Vice President, Věra.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this prestigious panel. How to start? Polarization definitely exists, and we have good data showing that more and more people are only able to catch on their radars extreme opinions. So it's more and more difficult for the politicians to get to the center of the opinion field and to catch the attention of the people. And here I have to say that we see the impact or influence of the modern era of internet and social media. Although, and Annette, who is here in the panel with us knows very well that I never belong to those who always blamed social platforms for all the troubles we have. I think that a very serious and unprecedented shift is up and running or ongoing in the society, caused by new factors and objective reasons. Many issues and challenges which are imported to EU or which simply started to be serious. I have to mention climate change, of course, war, energy crisis, inflation, security threats. Now in Germany we see that finally they openly speak about the connection between uncontrolled migration and security, which was not the case several years ago. So these are new challenges, and these are the new situations which create totally new feelings in the society. People feel unprecedented a level of anxiety and uncertainty, and they demand new solutions, and they demand quick solutions. People in social media era are impatient, and we politicians, sitting politicians, are not able to be that quick and that new with the solutions. Sorry, I am a politician who should come with the solution myself, and I'm analyzing it only. But I think that we have to detect the reasons for anxiety in the society and really try hard to listen more to the people, use all the possible channels to address them. Here I think that underestimated factor or level are the municipalities, the people who are closest to the citizens, because I cannot imagine from Brussels to change the opinion of people who live in my town, which is in Czech Republic, far to the east. So I don't want this to sound like a resignation. We all, on all our levels, we have some tasks to do to improve the communication and explain to people what we are doing and what will come next. Because speaking about anxiety, the people want to hear what will come next week, in 1 year, in 10 years' time. And sorry, we are not giving the people clear and understandable answers. 90% of the speeches here would not be well understood by the people who are not politicians, lawyers, experts. You know what I mean? I think that we also have to change the way and speed we communicate. I have more about what to do, but maybe later, because I think I exhausted my 5 minutes.
I think you still have about a minute.
Okay, so.
Okay.
No, I will maybe say one sentence. In the era I tried to describe, we speak a lot about the low trust of people in institutions and in media. In some countries, already several years ago, I heard that the level of mistrust is going up to 40–45%. Ladies and gentlemen, our type of democracy, which we believe it works, will not work if majority of people will start to be convinced that democracy of this type does not work for them. We are there almost, seeing very varying figures. So trust, we have a tendency to speak about the need to renew trust of people in us. And I would say, let's speak more about renewing the trust in people and respect to the people. And it's connected with the communication, with creating the system where the people will have a chance to reach for the facts, because that's the only way how to fight against disinformation. The way to do it is not to prohibit functioning of TikTok or YouTube. I will not mention Google. Let's maybe speak more about whether we trust the citizens enough and whether we are equipping them enough to be able to manage the new era in our type of democracy. Now, full stop.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice President. President Ilves.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. I will talk about a concrete case of trying to do something which I did a long time ago. But when my country was confronted with massive polarization and potential unrest, having read James Fishkin's book on deliberative democracy, I thought, well, maybe we should get people talking to each other. And so, sort of adapting it, what we did was, first of all, ask people to complain and say what needed to be done. We did this but you could only do this with your digital identities. To prevent trolling, you had to make proposals or complaints under your own name, which simplified things. Then we had, back then, this was before AI, we had 5 political scientists, professors, group all of these different issues into different categories. And then following the Fishkin method, we basically invited 1,000 people to come to a discussion. The discussion was in groups. It was not with 1,000 people yelling, but there were there were about 90, 95 tables of 10, and then we proposed these various issues and people would discuss them. For me, since one of the things that we have in my country is that we have a parliamentary system, but we don't have a directly elected president, which I've always been against because the prime minister has an indirect mandate. The president has a direct mandate under elections, yet constitutionally the president has no real authority compared to the executive function of the prime minister, and it would just lead to a mess. But in any case, what happened was that 85% of the population was always against or wanted to have direct election of the president. But when we actually had these deliberative discussions in these 10-person roundtables, we ended up with overwhelming majority saying, yeah, we should probably stick to this the system we have, which is the parliament and or the electoral college. Anyway, that was one example that was the most sort of obvious, but we had a number of issues where people wanted to where they concluded among themselves, we should lower the threshold for registering a party, lower the threshold for getting into parliament, and there were some other things that were fairly specific to Estonia. And then, of course, the issue comes up, well, what is the democratic legitimacy of this? And the parties rightly said, well, who are these people? They're saying this. So what I did, sort of on slippery ground, went to the parliament and I said, here are these proposals that have been made. And then you, the Parliament of Estonia, you vote on them if you accept these proposals or not. And 4 of them were passed by the Parliament, with the negative result that by lowering the threshold for registering a party, we got a hardcore, hard-right party that was registered as a party and is now polling at a rather high number in my country. So thanks a lot. But in any case, the point is that you need, one of the things with deliberative democracy is that people, when they talk to each other one-on-one or one-on-10, tend to move toward the center and away from the extremist positions that people come to the discussion with. Now, this whole thing was not really understood by my media, which had never heard of James Fishkin or the model or it being done. So they said, oh, this is really stupid. On the other hand, it did get, what the effect of it was that the discussions led to concrete changes in legislation based on a representative sample of 1,000 people having a serious discussion that coalesced around more centrist position resulted in. So that's one positive experience. And other countries have done this since then. But in any case, that was my experience, and remain a big fan of James Fishkin's book, The Liberty of Democracy. I would suggest you all read. But first, get a digital identity so you can do it.
Well, I will make it simpler for myself. Annette.
Yes, thank you so much for including me in this distinguished panel. It's a fascinating conversation and a topic that we are all in together. It's a societal issue we are discussing. So we are all in this together, and the role of tech companies, technology companies is huge. We totally see this and take our responsibility seriously and are committed to citizen engagement and participation. And why is that? Well, I would love to refer back to our mission that we have since more than 25 years, and the mission of Google, and Google is the mother of YouTube, is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And that's the reason why we are deeply invested in this topic. So how do we do that? And let me go maybe first to where citizen engagement is most important, and this is peak times, it's election. We just had European elections, we have US elections coming up, and here we obviously have a very important role to play. How do we do that? We raise authoritative information on our platforms, whether it's on search, whether it's on YouTube, to make sure the users understand where to go to vote, where to find the right information, how to inform with reliable resources. That's very important. So that's one thing. Then secondly, obviously, we have to secure our platforms. We have to make sure they're not abused, they are not by bad actors, and have to adapt our policy constantly there. And finally, of course, we have to make sure those vulnerable in election times are not subject to cyber attacks. So we offer support there through security shields, and that's something that we also are very much invested in. But to the previous point, we have to work, and this is what we do concretely in the context of elections, very briefly described. But this is an ongoing challenge, and we have to, on an ongoing basis, engage with civil society and governments to protect democracy. And here we are working, we are working in partnership with civil society. Let me give you one example from Czechia, which is very important, and this is to work with the Central European Media Observatory here in Prague, CEDMO, on fighting misinformation and on boosting digital skills, which obviously is crucial for the discussion. People understand what they are doing, and maybe we have some time later on to discuss about pre-bunking, a technique, or I bring it in here because I have time, a technique that we have experimented with a couple of years in CE already, and now have expanded it to ahead of the European elections. And pre-bunking is technique to alert users about manipulation techniques before they actually encounter them on the web. So scapegoating is one example, or decontextualization, that techniques used by bad actors to manipulate behavior, and that are easier to understand if you are educated about it. And this is this pre-bunking initiative, which we did in partnership with many organizations across Europe, reached 120 million users. And we have not only run it in all European languages, but also in Russian, Turkish, and Arab to really reach everyone. So that's, I think, one example I wanted to mention, how to fight misinformation and how to be creative. I think Scott Carpenter from Jigsaw which is a think tank within Google, is here and is engaging in conversation to better understand how we can actually use our engineering skills to be creative in this field. And then, of course, we haven't heard the word yet, which is rare, AI. AI is the elephant in the room, and indeed something that is going to being significant for the development in the next years, and it gives us it obviously poses huge challenges, but on the other hand, it gives us a means to scale our efforts on cybersecurity, on defense, and I'm very excited about the opportunities it gives us, and I stop here.
Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, Ivan.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not a specialist on polarization and disengagement, and you wanted me to be concrete. I'm Bulgarian, and this has certain advantages. For example, we talk about polarization, but in political level, to be honest, what I found the most now kind of a dangerous thing in Europe is a combination between fragmentation and polarization. For the last 5 years, Bulgaria is going now to have the 7th parliamentary elections. We go for elections. We elect a parliament. Parliament cannot elect a government, and we go for new elections. And listen, for 5 years, you're doing this 7 times. The public participation is around 30%. And I can see something like this happening now in France. I can see it in other places. Why it comes? And for me, this is critically important because the problem of polarization, you're going to say, oh, Bulgarians are doing this because they disagree about so many things. Bulgaria is very polarized, but unfortunately, we agree about almost everything. 85% believe that the country is totally corrupt. So you try to see on what people exactly disagree on substance, and they're going to disagree whom they blame for the situation, not so much basically what is happening. I'm saying this because in my view, one of the major things that has happened is that democracy is based on the idea that we have experiences, and we know best about our own experiences, and this is why nobody knows better than us what is best for us. But in the modern world, we all the time asked to have an opinion on things on which you do not have a personal experience. What kind of personal experience I can have on AI? I should either trust or not trust and decide to whom to trust. And this creates a situation because when we talk about disinformation and where people are normally confused on most of the issues. When the war in Ukraine started, some of our colleagues, anthropologists, went in Bulgaria making deep interviews with people to try to see where they're positioning themselves. And here is the story of a concrete person, so this is not an abstract. The guy is an owner of a small hotel on the Black Sea coast. He personally took care of 2 Ukrainian families and he was paying for them to stay. He was extremely critical to President Putin and basically blamed him for what is happening. At the same time, he was strongly against Bulgaria giving weapons to Ukraine because he said Ukrainians are right, but Russians are going to win and we're going to pay the price. And he was also strongly against the position of the President of the Republic saying this because he said there is something immoral to say this. How are you going to basically package this person? And I'm saying this because part of the problem of the social media is that most of this kind of confusion has disappeared. And when people go on social media, they're not commenting on experience or events, it's about identity. With everything that I'm saying, I want to say who I am. And from this point of view, in my view, the greatest experience in the world was what happened around COVID. By the way, people are totally underestimating the effect of COVID pandemics on the rise of the far right. In many countries, much more than migration. Go on the vote, for example, in Austria, on Wall Austria and others. Why? Because mistrusting is becoming the status issue. In Bulgaria, during the COVID, the major story was everybody decides for himself. And then you don't know how to go into this conversation, because is it about misinformation or not? I was telling you stories, but the next story which I want to tell you, which was always going to stay with me, was of a woman that was waiting in a hospital, and next to her was a lady who said, do you know what, we should not do vaccination because they want to vaccinate us because they want to cheat us and this and that. And this woman was so much kind of pissed off of this conversation. So she said, no, you're wrong. There is a different conspiracy theory. There is too many people in the world, and those who are not going to be vaccinated are going to die. And this woman said, I should get vaccinated. Why I'm saying? Because normally this is not truth versus conspiracy theory. Quite often it's a conspiracy theory versus another conspiracy theory. And this is very much, I know something that you don't know, and this makes me special. And this makes it so difficult for the governments to communicate anything, because mistrust is the default option. You start from the feeling that you don't trust, and basically then you're trying to find basically the reasons for this. I'm saying this because from this point of view, politics is changing. And I'm going to end up on something that at least for me was very important. When you go on elections, we all the time talk what is represented. Values are represented, interests are represented. But there is one thing that is not represented during the elections, and this is the intensity of the feeling of the voters. You who care really about a lot about the issue, and I who don't care much, we have one vote. And as a result of it, basically this kind of a moderation comes not simply from the fact that basically people has a balanced views, but you're balancing intensity. What happened in the modern politics is that many people left political sphere, they're not voting, they're not interested. And on the other side, social media increased the intensity of the others. And as a result of it, I do believe this idea of intensity is creating, and I'm going to end up where I started. For me, the bigger issue is that we have a crisis of governance. Listen, there is polarization in which one side prevails and they're doing things, and these things can be awful, but you're governing. But in the case of Bulgaria, for 5 years, the country is basically not governed. And I do believe this is something that I can see happening in many other places. We have been talking with Annette about East Germany and what kind of governments they're going to have in some of the provinces. So from this point of view, we're entering in a period in which I do believe much more fragmentation in combination with polarization than simply polarization on its own are going to be the biggest issue.
Well, thank you, Ivan. And well, let's try to stir it up. Early on, it just disappeared. There was a graph on the panel which could be taken as a measure of engagement. Is the proportion of the population who feel they have a say in what the government does and who are confident in their own ability to participate in politics. And unfortunately, you see most of the European countries on the graph. The worst of all is, for some reason, our own country, the Czech Republic, with a very low degree of low proportion of people who feel they can participate in politics and think that the government does, they have a say in what the government does. Now, the reasons for this distrust are many, and I'm so happy that each of the panelists pointed at a different one. The president spoke about hostile rhetorics as one of the causes of polarization. It certainly is out there, and we should not be underestimating it, but sometimes it is our own rhetoric which is, the source of confusion and distrust. And Vice President Jourová spoke about the failing communication that we have with the people, and she pointed out a particular phenomenon, anxiety, as a growing problem in European populations. And empirically, the data are catastrophic. At this point, there is a grave shortage of psychologists in this country and in other European countries to attend to the problem. And I have a confession to make and a secret to reveal on one of the other panelists. Both Toomas, Ilves and I are originally psychologists by by profession. So it's we can understand the gravity of the problem, but it's not necessarily the case, Madam Vice President, that the people are waiting for the solutions and we can't offer them the solution. Sometimes they are afraid of the solutions that we will offer them. And part of the problem, and this is something specific that worries me, is the language. If you listen to the rhetorics of this conference or any other governmental forum or expert forum, the language is completely incomprehensible to the people. I mean, at an earlier panel today, we were discussing PESCO. I mean, you are a sophisticated audience, so most of you will know what PESCO means. It's the permanent structured cooperation of the European Union. It's the European defense project. But any ordinary human being would think it's a fishmonger store or something like that.
Most people in the European leadership don't know what PESCO means these days.
Okay, I wasn't about to be cynical, about this. And this gives a great advantage to the populists because they don't worry about, the details. They don't worry about the technicals. They use simple language to make their case, and many people react to the language because it's comprehensible. So this is one thing. President Ilves spoke about he's a model for me in this, about his digitalization activities as a way to make democracy more approachable, bring it closer to the people. And he emphasized one aspect of it that I think is vitally important, and that's the matter of digital identity. We've known about this for 20 years, and most of our governments have not done a very great job about it. And and I'm sorry to say, I'm now moving on to Annette, most of the digital companies and social networks, operators, etc., have not done a great job about it. Because we all will agree when we say information is the currency of our age. And to use this metaphor for our money, when we want to deal with our money, we have to go to the bank and prove our identity not once, but several times to be able to dispose of whatever we want to do. You don't have to do this on the internet, and I don't know why. I have this vision of two internets, one for the phantoms and the trolls and the bots and the specters, and let them do whatever they do and trade their fake information. But the other internet should be a network for real people, and the only way to be real is to have an identity. The whole phenomenon, and this is getting me to Ivan, the whole phenomenon of trust is based on people knowing each other. In a village, people know each other, know who they are, who to fear, who to trust, etc., etc. In the global village that we are so proud of, we don't have a firm identity, and I think it's causing many of the problems that we feel. So I was trying to be a little provocative, and now let's see whether I succeeded. Back to the panel. Yeah, Toomas?
Yeah. I was going to say, just when it comes to Google, 2017 to 2020, I was at Stanford, and one of the things that came up there, and now I don't have the academic citation for it, but was talking about engagement on the part of Google searches, and it was that if your search history, the example that they had found was if your search history made you sort of an environmentalist and you put in fracking, you would get a whole lot of anti-fracking stuff. If your search history was about the oil industry, you would get what would be returned to you was a lot of, well, pro-fracking stuff. And that was the example that was brought by the Internet Research Agency, or whatever the group was called at the time. Now, I don't know, is that still true? Is that true?
Well, we work on getting our search results unbiased, and obviously we use the search history to display or to give you better answers. But I do think we work on getting it in a better place. When were you in Stanford? Sorry.
2017 to 2020.
Okay.
It was
so
around
that's
2018.
Four years ago. Yeah, and it's a constantly evolving search.
Yeah, that's why I asked,
Yeah.
because it did do something where if you already have a predisposition, you get stuff that you believe in, and you have a different predisposition, you get other stuff, which then leads to rabbit holes and all this other stuff.
All right. Věra?
Yeah, okay, I have three, I hope, short comments. On AI and e-identity, so real people on internet. My theory is that very soon AI will chase the people out. And let's help this process, because now be with me. I sometimes shock the people when I say we must never give AI the freedom of speech and the protection of free speech. It's a machine.
Yeah.
If AI will start producing piles and piles of deep fakes and disinformation, the real people will have no chance to get out of this trouble. Even if we have an agreement with the big tech that they label the production of AI, sooner or later every message, every picture will contain some portion of AI production. So I think that we will seriously have to start thinking about some communication channel or some tool where the people will again talk to people. And I think that it's the common task for the technologists and for us politicians. We must never give AI freedom of speech and copyright. Because if we give AI the copyright, it will be the end of independent media or media as such. Journalism will be dead. Yeah? So let's be aware of this. Second comment. This graph which we saw is a very bad news because it speaks about the resignation of people, that they do not believe that if they engage, it will change something. So I think that to try again to invite the people to the decision-making, which is the basic feature of democracy, is our task number one. The Czech figures are really, Mr. President, not very nice when you look at it. I don't have to say that this is the gradual, slow way to authoritarian regime, because when people are telling you, we don't want to engage, let somebody else does things for us, then this is giving it over to the autocrat. Yeah? Somebody strong who will manage. Last comment, political reaction on polarization. I think that we did a lot through the digital regulation, that the algorithms should not just push the people to the bubbles. I think that if the big tech or tech in general will manage to do it, we will have some kind of normal horizontal discussion back. I used to call it that the big tech privatized the public discussion. and now we have to come back. So polarization is under some kind of maybe solution with the tech sector. But we have to avoid two things, and here I will finish. We must not overshoot with paternalization or dictating how to communicate from the political level. Because democracy, it's a noise, it's a sometimes very wild discussion, it's a competition of ideas and visions, and we must not kill this. So let's try to live with it and let's protect it. The second danger, and here I will stop, is the lack of reaction, and I mean it's the lack of reaction on radicalization. Yeah, because this is very big securities also issue, and I think that we should be able to react on the tendencies to radicalize and to influence the real life by radicalization online, and that's the work for repressive field for the police and prosecutors.
Yes, well, Annette, I think some of what
I'm happy
the
to
Vice
react.
President said was aimed at you, not the last thing, but the thing.
Well, I have gotten a couple. Obviously, technology is technology companies have to tackle a lot of challenges, and I think there is a default and also a bit not in this conversation and discussion to say it's the platforms that are causing the issues. It's AI that causes issues. I don't believe this is like, yes, we are platforms, yes, we have to tackle a lot of hard questions, and in particular when it comes to AI. Totally correct what the Commissioner just said. We have to engage in industry-wide efforts, how to address the obvious challenges at hand. And there are many examples already how we engage together in figuring out copyright, how we find out the provenance topics, the authenticity topics. So that's happening already, and it's an ongoing conversation. You can't close this because the conversation is going on. The development is fast. However, I think we can't go back in time. So we have to work together. I think this is a crucial insight. We have to work together, figuring out how to govern technology, and we are obviously we have been in very constructive discussions, and I think we are progressing there. And also we have to be open, and I think that's the point I would love to make. We have to accept that there is technology. We want to use it. It's making our lives easier. We love engaging with, some love Instagram, some love posting videos. We love to have the information in our hand. We really want to not lose this progress. Hence, we have to work together in making it sustainable and relevant for society. And most importantly, I think we have to take our citizens seriously and skill them up. And we have to encourage, as politicians, I do feel, or I'm not a politician, to take them seriously in what they are doing, and not saying they are doing something wrong and we have to teach them what to do else, but we have to take the citizens seriously and find a language, to your earlier point, how to address citizens.
Thank you. Well, I promised I will leave some time for questions, and I'm going to fulfill my promise. First from Slido. I'm afraid I will put you on the spot, Mr. President, but there's a question for you. Mr. President, do you think there is enough effort to fight against the polarization from the political parties, both in the government and in the opposition in Czechia?
Well, you asked us to be concrete and to avoid generalization, so I will stick to Czech Republic. I think we seriously lack a culture of doing politics. When we listen to the politicians from both camps blaming each other that they are the worst government in history, that anything they did was wrong, and that once we get back, we will cancel all what they did, and we will come up with something definitely better. When we keep telling to our people that politics is a dirty business, and if you want to stay clean, just stay away from politics, or if we use an argument, you don't have to get dirty by the politics, I will do it for you. Just don't care about it, I will handle it for you. How can we then see a different picture from this chart when people simply don't want to engage because they believe they cannot change anything because it is truly a dirty business. So it's two-way. First, politicians were telling people that they shouldn't engage, and now people, when people stopped trusting institutions, where they don't expect anything else from their politicians than to be offensive to everyone. And if someone tries to be complacent and say, this proposal of the opposition was actually good, and then the very citizens, the voters, would attack the same politician of being complacent because they want him to be aggressive. So now every side is affecting each other, and it seems like a vicious circle without any outcome. I believe that there is the way out in building on small agreements wherever they are. If it is in foreign policies, if it is in minor issues of social events, but building on something that we have in common is simply crucial for overcoming this very difficult period. And now we're in such a total denial that it's extremely difficult to come up with something that would generate some agreement, because government and the opposition are in such a contradiction. They simply cannot agree almost on anything. And even when you come up with something where you have an agreement from government, you have an agreement from the opposition, but then when you try to bring it together, you will hear, we will not help this government to fulfill its program, because then we will ease their situation. We don't want it. We will wait until the elections, and then we will do it in a different way. We will present the same proposal as today, but it will be our proposal. Of course, we cannot achieve anything by this approach. So it's only fair to go to people, talk to them, listen to them, and follow through their concerns, so that they see that politicians, not all of them, but some politicians really care about their problems, want to resolve them, and come up with proposals how to bring government and the opposition, whoever it is, together and to work on common solutions. But it is difficult, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep trying.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I just realized I made the cardinal mistake of contradicting everything I advocated earlier. This question was anonymous. You know, I never respond to anonymous posts or Facebook posts, etc., etc. I don't think we should, but I made this mistake. So is there some real person in the room who wants to ask a question? Yes, please.
Patty Morrissey from the U.S. I'm CEO of Global Foresight Strategies after a career in national security. Before that, or during that career, when I was not officially a government civilian, I ran for office twice in Virginia. And I got the wonderful experience of having an opponent who told blatant lies about everyone he ever ran against and got away with it and got elected. I would say that was over 20 years ago, and things have gotten so much worse with the just constant social media and cable news banter about how terrible the other side is. And I can't remember, I think it might have been President Pavel that said, you know, this like feeding these negative, everybody in politics is dirty, right? Undermines the very essence of what we think in a democracy is. I randomly met two professional football players in the lobby last night and struck up a conversation. And one of them says, I never vote because it doesn't matter. And I said, so you're anti-democracy then? He's like, well, no, they're all bad. I'm like, no, they aren't. Most of the people that put themselves out there are public servants who don't make a lot of money doing it, who actually care about the public good. That's a huge majority. So I think there is a battle, as I think everyone has said in different ways. We've got to keep fighting. But I say things as I run into people that are just saying, like, if you don't believe in voting and paying some attention to honest information, then you're basically saying, I don't believe in democracy. And that always shocks them. So get in the game.
Another mistake. This was not exactly a question. But there's a voice in my ear saying, you have to finish, time's up. So I will thank my panelists, Mr. President, Madam Vice President, Mr. President, Mrs. Vice President, and Ivan, my friend. And thank you all for being here and attending the session. And I have to say now that wraps up day one on Albright Stage. The Globsec Award dinner begins soon, but as long as Mr. President is here, it will not begin. Because buses leave at 10-minute intervals from 1910 to 1930. Tomorrow we begin bright and early at 8:45 on Havel Stage with opening remarks from Czech Minister of Foreign Affairs Jan Lipavský, followed by a full day of panels and side sessions. See you tomorrow here at Albright Stage, and thank you very much.